So today we've got a bit of a unique podcasting setup, but I'll introduce Matt Henry from Sky Body. Matt's a highly regarded strength coach here in the UAE, and I've been meaning to have him on the podcast for a while now, and we've finally got our act together and set ourselves up. So yeah, it's a pretty cool location, London project.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Didn't even know it existed until you told me about it, but. So it's basically just for those listening and obviously can't see us, we're in a bar, but there's like a private podcasting studio. So hopefully it should be fun.
Yeah, we're on our first beer now, so we'll see how many we get through and what we can talk about.
Exactly. Yeah, so just to give the listeners a little bit of a background on yourself and maybe even your rugby career and just how you first got into strength and conditioning, just give them a little bit of insight who you are, yeah.
Originally, we'll start from the beginning. I'm originally from New Zealand. Grew up there and left straight out of high school. So straight out of high school, moved over to Australia, onto the Gold Coast, and I found myself not wanting to be in Auckland where I'd come from. So I've always had this kind of need to be traveling and seeing different places and just seeing the world, I guess. And that kind of took me from Australia, and when I left Aussie to go back home and think about studying, and I went back to Auckland, but I thought, I can't be here anymore. And then I got the opportunity to go play rugby in the UK. So obviously, I've always loved playing rugby, been all right at it, so got the opportunity to go play semi-pro over in the UK and just jumped at it. Went and lived there for 2.5 years. And that was kind of where I started getting into strength and conditioning. So at the rugby club over there, I kind of took on a bit of a role as in my last year as a bit of the strength and conditioning coach. So I was doing a lot of just the rugby conditioning stuff and taking our players through all of that and just trying to get them fit with no qualifications. I was just talking to friends that were professionals and taking bits and stuff.
And then when you said that you wanted to study, but what area were you? I guess out of high school, was it? Focused on strength and conditioning?
No, interestingly enough, it was very different. Throughout high school, I've always been quite creative, so I was always looking at design, graphic design, and going down that avenue. So, straight out of high school, it was I'm going into graphic design. That was all I was thinking about. And sports kind of took a back seat in my last year of high school because I kind of fell out of love with the politics of rugby, and that pushed me away from sport, and that's, I guess, I left into the graphic design stuff. But going back to the UK, I fell in love with rugby again and fell in love with sport again, and that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to study. I decided to go study sports, strength and conditioning, sports science. And then I had a conversation with my brother, and he sold me on doing engineering. I don't know how.
It's good salesman.
Very good salesman. And so I went home and I did engineering for 2 years, and I was like, what am I doing? Doing engineering. It wasn't me at all. Sitting in an office all day, just not me at all. So I dropped out of uni, and then I did a 1-year diploma in exercise prescription.
And that was in New Zealand, or?
New Zealand. So that was the New Zealand Institute of Sport. Great year. Apart from most of the guys in the class were a lot younger than me, because obviously at that point I'm 25. But it was good. I definitely knew I was I had found my vocation by that point. I knew what I was.
But I think with that, when you go back and you're a little bit older, you have a little bit more advantage, not from just a learning, but just from a motivation, because you've figured out who you are, you've been overseas, you've seen a bit, and then okay, this is my career, this is what I want to do.
And that's at 18, I thought graphic design was what I wanted to do. And I'd gone around and done a few things, and I'd come back and realised that I wanted training.
Well, it's almost the same as me. I was probably a bit older when I went back to study, but I went back to do exercise sports science at Deakin University in Melbourne when I was 30. So, and I was still working full time. I had an internship at a strength and conditioning association at the same time, but I was doing full time study. But I was just highly motivated to go through it, still got good marks. Whereas all these uni students who are 18, 19, they're going out, getting drunk, missing exams, and that sort of stuff.
Messing about. That's it. you take a lot more in and get a lot more out of it when you decide to do it. Because you've found what you want to go into.
Yeah. And it's also, you're vested in it as well, because I was spending my money on, like, you know, tuition costs. It's not like, you know, mum was paying for it, or as soon as you're like, put your money where your mouth is, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna fail. I'm not gonna go back. But was there any, I guess, going back to maybe the rugby, but was there sort of guys that you looked up to in terms of mentors? And you mentioned before guys that were in the strength and conditioning side of things. Were there sort of early guys that sort of shaped you in terms of what you wanted to progress as a coach?
I guess so. Like, obviously being a Kiwi, we've got one of the best strength and conditioning, I guess, trainers, coaches in the world, Nick Gill. And so, like, he's the All Black strength and conditioning coach.
It's good to do a big job.
He kind of wrote the book on a lot of stuff, you know, and like, always looked up to the things he did and followed a lot of the early stuff that he was putting into place with the All Blacks. He's, you know, helped them go on a 12-year win streak with the World Cup, right, basically, didn't he? So, guys like that. I also had, like, one of my good friends, Brett Robinson. He runs the ACE Performance academies over in Melbourne and Brisbane. He kind of taught me a lot of stuff early when I was going into you know, learning about everything. So he had already done his sports science degree down at Otago University in New Zealand. And he gave me a few programs and taught me about, you know, the ins and outs and stuff. Give me that early insight, I guess.
Because I think that's the common thread when I speak to people on the podcast, but just in general, like, they've been in the right place at the right time, or they've just been open to having someone sort of guide them and give you that little bit of structure. Because when you're starting out, and we were speaking about it in the cab on the way here, it's like you see common mistakes in the industry. It's just not having structure, not having guidance, not having someone to show you the ropes. And I think for you, and same for me, you have those early people that take you through that, and you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be done. And
definitely the structure side, you're right. Because you go into, like, a lot of these Globo gyms, like these big places where, you know, there's like Fitness First, for example, or these trainers just hanging about. There's no structure. They're just training guys off the cuff. You know? But you learn from these actual sports coaches and athlete coaches that, periodization, like having someone actually go through a program and measuring them from the start to the end, not just changing it all the time.
Exactly. And that's also, everything filters down from the top level, like whether it's from the top strength and conditioning coaches in rugby or football or whatever it is, it all filters down to general pop at the end of the day. So you're all the methods that you're using or that we're using, someone's used at that elite level. And it does get a bit sexy to sell, saying we're doing the same structure as the All Blacks or whatever it is. Because everyone wants to do whatever the latest is, whether it's the 300 workout or you get
people want to follow the trends, don't they?
Exactly.
All the time.
And in terms of, so you did the education, you did the Sports Institute with New Zealand. So what was the next sort of steps for you then as a coach?
So during that year, I actually took on a couple jobs. First one was strength and conditioning coach for a group of kids. So it was 10 to 12-year-olds, which was quite interesting. Obviously, like we talked about it earlier, how difficult it is to train kids. But that was quite cool, seeing them develop over the year and just teaching them about, you know, the more professional side of training. I know they're only young, but just saying, okay, well, if you really want to aspire to be an athlete, these are the types of things that you're going to have to put in place. And, it can't just be fun a lot of the time. We've got to look at the boring stuff and really work on that a lot. It was quite interesting to see them develop as kids throughout the year.
But I think as a coach as well, your skills get better when you work with like kids because
you've got to be creative.
But also you've got to be able to control a room. So you walk into a room of like, you know, motivated 20 men athletes who are like trying to get better. You tell them the program, they're going to go, okay, easy, let's go do this. Whereas you get kids, they come in and they're like, you know, kicking their buddy or whatever it is. If you can control that room with kids, then it makes the rest of your coaching so much easier.
100%.
And then so in terms of like, that's like your work experience, but I mean, just from watching you as a coach and just hearing you talk about different structured programs, what I guess after continued education courses have you been focused on, or which ones have had big impact on your structure?
I don't know. Like I really like just seeing athlete development, and I guess just personal pairs. Like I've not really gone through any other formal education. I went through the Les Mills program, their personal training program, not their classes program.
Yeah.
So while I was at school, that's another thing that I went into as one of their personal trainers, and that kind of let me see the different types of personal trainer I could be. I could either be just like your Globo Gym personal trainer, or I could be a strength and conditioning coach. And, I made friends with a lot of strength and conditioning coaches in the industry. And that kind of guided me into where I wanted to be and molded me.
Yeah. And then so with your like program design and that sort of stuff, is that, I guess, who's influenced you? Is it just the coaches that you've worked with, or articles or books or some stuff that you've read?
Yeah, a mixture of everything. So I read a lot. One of my favorite people to follow and read is Dr. Andy Galpin. So he's got a lot of awesome free content out there. I watch one of his videos pretty much every single day. And just a lot of what I do is stems from that. So I take his stuff and kind of make it my own. Because you've always got to, I find as a trainer, you've got to make things your own. But use science to do that, you know?
Well, you don't want to be cookie cutter just copying templates and trying to apply it to different people, because it's, different populations are going to respond to different things. So but as we go back to like the framework side of things, as long as you have a little bit of structure there, which sounds like you do on there, would you do anything different if you went back, say you finished school? Would you change anything in terms of your...
I think so. Yeah. I would definitely have done a degree. I would have done my sports science degree. Just because it's just going to help me progress faster in the industry. I work for myself, so I don't need a degree. But I think it would have just helped me in those early years just to understand everything a bit better and move forward a lot faster. Because I guess, like yourself, as personal trainers, we have to work with a lot of general population, and as good as it is to see those results, like I really want to work with athletes. So I think down the line I might have to go back and study, because I do want to work with professional athletes. That for me is like a big goal.
Well, I mean, it's never too late, because I mean you can do it online now, and the most of when I was doing it was probably 2013 to 2015. I did my degree, and most of the stuff was online. So there's certain practicals you had to go in and do, but you could do a lot of it online as long as you're motivated to study, do the readings. Then it makes it easy. But I think the frustrating thing for me was a little bit of it was you just go through to tick the box and say you've done it, and say, okay, this is passed. But whereas like you come out at the end of the actual degree, like for me, because I was applying it and because I was coaching at the same time, it was really useful. And so I took it. But the kids who went through, they would know better. Like I wouldn't employ them as a coach at the end of that.
It goes in and out, doesn't it? As soon as you start learning the next thing, you forget about it, because you're not applying, like you said, you're not applying it. It just goes.
Unless the good part of the degree was they did set you up with different sporting organisations. So I worked with a rugby club, and so you do get exposure. If you get a good internship with that, then your exposure is just so much better. And then you do have the networking side of things, and I think that's probably the most valuable part of continued education and study, is just the network.
That's exactly what I've probably missed. Because the guys that I went to school with were all a lot younger than me. They weren't progressing into the same part of their career as I was. So I've had to build my network, I guess, since I got to Dubai, and just meet people. And for myself, like, it's not an easy thing to do. I go into the gym, I'm head down. I don't really speak to someone until they come speak to me. So it's quite difficult to actually build those networks. So I guess like it's taken us 3-4 months to actually get onto this and start working together. So
for sure. In terms of like, so just going back to like what brought you initially to Dubai? What was the closing that loop?
Well, I've been here back in 2010 for the first time. So I come over for the sevens while I was living in the UK.
Okay.
And I'd come back 2 years after that for the sevens every year. I just really liked the place back then, and it was a very different place back then. And then after England, I moved back to New Zealand. I got a job in Kuwait.
Okay.
I got offered a job over there, so I flew to Kuwait on a one-way ticket, thinking, what have I got to lose? I've just broken up by my partner at the time. Let's get out of the country and go see another part of the world.
Yeah.
Thinking Kuwait was going to be like Dubai.
Yeah.
So I got a big shock when I got there. It was a dry country. We couldn't have any bears like we are now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very different. It was a bit cliquey, and I didn't really enjoy my time there. So I was in Kuwait for 2.5 months, and I thought, all right, I'm going to Dubai. I know I like Dubai.
Well, Dubai's the Las Vegas of the Middle East.
It is, isn't it? And I didn't know anyone here, so it's a bit funny. I bought a one-way ticket to Dubai, and I just got on Tinder and I found places to sleep. Honestly, it was quite funny.
The best way.
Yeah. So, and that took me, 2-3 months, and then I had an income and I found my own place to live.
You found your own places and you had a girlfriend, or?
No, I found my own place to live, and I met a girlfriend. But I hustled for 3 months when I first got here. It was quite funny.
Yeah.
Actually, I went into real estate when I first got here because I wasn't sure how to get into the personal training and the fitness side of things. So I went straight into real estate, and yeah, it was a bit of fun.
Yeah. And then since you've been here, what's been the progression? We can talk about your business, Skybody, in a bit, but just in terms of the natural evolution of, you getting on Tinder and finding a different place to sleep every night, and then you actually obviously cementing yourself and actually starting work.
Yeah, so obviously while I was working at SPAS, I was already a Les Mills certified class coach. So I reached out to a few gyms and I started teaching grip classes down at TriFit in the marina. And that was quite cool. I was doing like 3 classes a week just to make a bit of pocket money. And then they offered me the fitness manager role down there. So I was running the PTs. I went down there and worked there for, I guess I was there for 3.5 months. And like, it wasn't a great place to work. And so yeah, I moved on from there and went straight into Skybody, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And throughout the next 2-3 years, I kind of was just freelancing, working for myself, or working in other gyms, like other classes, teaching classes at places like the Vault or F45 and places like that.
Yeah. And I think it comes across, when you see a coach, because I've probably come from more of a personal training background for many years, but when you see a coach who's done a lot of group fitness stuff, I think they've got an advantage, because the longer you've been doing group fitness, and I think initially for me, I was kind of like against group fitness, because you kind of like, personal training, you specialise, you're very niche, you do a lot of, biomechanical assessments, your diet's very periodised, all the stuff is high end, if you will, with the inverted commas. But with group fitness, is like a different skill set. And that's what, when Olivia and myself met you, like, you could see you had a good presence in the class, and you know how to teach a class. Whereas you see a lot of personal trainers, they come in and they teach a group fitness class like they're running a personal training session.
Yeah, they're almost talking to themselves, aren't they? At the front of the room. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, because like, I think one of the things that Les Mills do really well. I'm not trying to plug it. I know I keep saying Les Mills all the time.
Les Mills is a global.
Yeah, they're amazing at building an atmosphere in a room. But the first thing they tell you when you go to be a class coach there is be yourself. And you got to be energetic, obviously. And if you're a quiet person, you can be an energetic, quiet person. But just be yourself the whole time. Don't try to be someone else. Because the last thing you can do is try to give someone else energy if it takes you all your energy to become someone else to run that class.
But it's inauthentic as well. Like it's transparent. People can see if your body language doesn't match what your energy and the way you teach. And that's whereas Olivia, she's come from more of a group fitness background. She taught a lot of Les Mills stuff. And so I actually really, because I actually looked at some of the stuff that she was learning when she was teaching Les Mills, and it's, bridging that gap. It's the art of coaching. It's not just, you can know all the X's and O's, this is how you get someone to periodize their program. This is how you deload. This is how you do this. But if you can't actually connect with the person, you can't emotionally engage with them and motivate. And I think Les Mills, like, you know, that's the reason why they're such a powerhouse globally. I mean, they're from New Zealand, but they're all around the world.
That's for me. For a big one with him is smiles in classes. Everyone's smiling, no matter how hard they're working. People are always having fun. It's because the coach is always smiling and always making sure that people are having fun before they're working hard.
Yeah, but it goes back to, like, the best form of exercise is the one that gets done. And if you're
key, isn't it?
and if you're enjoying your sessions, your classes, and that's why with our company that, you know, although, you know, there might be more technical stuff that we could be doing with an individual, they're enjoying themselves, they're doing the program, and they're actually showing up. So whereas if you go to a PT, it's very dry, and he's just running you through, this is it, why aren't you doing it?
Then a lot of PTs, you'll find as well, why people kind of love going to classes, I think, is as opposed to PTs, not just because of the cost, but you go to a lot of PTs and they just run you as hard as they can, because they think, okay, let's burn this guy into the ground. And then that person is buggered for a week, they can't train again, you know, whereas a good class, you'll push yourself as hard as you can, rather than a coach screaming at you the whole time. You know?
What do you think just touching on, like, the Dubai fitness industry, how would you compare it to, I know we've spoken about a lot of this offline, but how would you compare it to, say, the rest of the world, say, like London, UK, New Zealand?
It's different, yeah. It's very different. It's all about status and image over here, I find. You know, like, and a lot of people are misguided over here. Like, the general population are very misguided because you've got a lot of people who are quite fake, I guess, and not very transparent in the way that they've reached their results or they've got their clients to reach their results. And I just find that it's a bit misleading and
because it's, well, I'd say most of my listener base to the podcast would be either from America or Australia. So just sort of like painting that picture, it's more about how good you look and your Instagram followers and
very much so,
how good your content is online versus, you know, actually being good at something. So it's very, you know, everyone wants the designer stuff. They want to design a trainer as well.
100%. And a lot of guys, you were talking about it earlier, a lot of trainers will have loads of clients. They'll be full to the book, like their books will be full, but they're sitting in the gym looking at their phone while their client's doing some shit squats, you know, around the corner. And that's kind of frustrating, especially when, like, I guess it's a problem of mine that I need to fix, but, like, the marketing, the PR side of things isn't my strong set, and so it's kind of frustrating when I'm like, I know I'm a better coach than this person, but, like, I'm not able to make myself look like, you know, they do on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, because I think with those types of trainers that you're talking about, it's very self-centered. It's about them.
Yes.
So whereas a good coach is someone, it's about the client. So you give them an experience, but from the outside, it's like especially in Dubai, it's like the qualification is my six-pack and my followers.
I say to a lot of clients, if you're following trainers on Instagram, make sure that 95% of their posts are about helping you and not about how much they lift in the gym. You know, a lot of trainers will post, okay, look how good I am, but they will never give advice. No real advice on how to make people better.
No.
And I say to a lot of people, okay, like, if you're following these people and you're going to come to me with what they've told you to do, make sure that they're helping you and not just telling you what they do to make themselves look amazing.
Yeah. And I think also there's a big undercurrent. No one really talks about it, but there's a lot of drugs, performance-enhancing drugs here, and it's not like the rest of the world. It's actually easy to get.
Yeah. So I've talked to a mate, and I was like, he said, I've started taking steroids, and I was like, okay, where'd you get them from? He said, well, I got this number, I text this guy, and he said, okay, turn up to this warehouse, and we'll let you in. And he said he goes into this warehouse, and it's a fully kitted gym inside, and he goes up these set of stairs, and they gave him a little bag. They said, take this many times, and see you later. It's unreal.
But just to think of that, like, they don't actually, you wouldn't know the mortality rates or like what happens to them. But like to be prescribed a drug that's, you know, perceived, like your chances are you're going to be injecting that drug.
Yeah.
There's not many oral steroids that you take, and if you don't know that person's, you know, blood work, you don't know anything.
Yeah, there's no doctors involved. It's just, I want this. Can I have it? Yeah, here you go. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, throwing darts blindfolded. It's like you might hit the bullseye, but you could be like doing something very detrimental to your health.
Just like that guy. There's a news article came out a few weeks ago. A guy in Abu Dhabi. They've given him some steroid over in. I think he was just taking adrenaline or something like that, and he's in a coma now. He's buggered. Like his family's had to fly over from South Africa, and he's gone. He's a vegetable now. It's unreal.
And it's just unfortunately, like, you know, I think also the social media drives that thing, because they want more likes, they want more, you know, engagement, they want, you know, a six-pack or whatever it is, so they'll do whatever it takes to get that. But then, you know, whether they're being transparent to their clients or whether they're actually giving them, even worse than that, giving them advice on, you know, what drugs to be taking. If they're a personal trainer and they've got no medical background whatsoever, it's like becomes very dangerous. And I know that there's quite a few trainers here that do take steroids, and, you know, you'll see their stuff online and they'll be saying, you know, the key to fat loss is eating green vegetables and drinking heaps of water. And like, I'm looking at the post, I'm like, man, you're like 2% body fat, not because you're eating green vegetables.
Inject it every day. Yeah, it's crazy. So funny. So that's what people want, though. People, unfortunately, especially in places like the Middle East, people want things fast, and they want to be able to pay for those things to make them faster. Which unfortunately, the reality when it comes to your body is that it's a lifestyle. It's not about an 8-week challenge. You know, like that's not going to change your life. It's about having these things in place where, okay, this class might last you for 4 weeks, but we're going to give you the tools to take that for the rest of your life. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the guys I follow online is an Australian guy. He's more of like a life coach. Actually, I'm not sure if he'd identify with life coach, but he does a lot of like personal empowerment sort of stuff. But what he's massively into like the gym, and he's been lifting for years. He's an older guy, and he always says, you know, everyone always wants the 4-week, the 6-week program. He's like, how about you try my 5-decade program? You'd sign up and do my 5-decade program. And it's like, it's so true. And I mean, in our business, we sell a 4-week program, but it's like a Kickstarter to the rest of their journey. So it's not, you don't sign up to a program and then hope, I'm 4 weeks, I'm done, like, sweet, check out. It's like, man, you've got another like 20, 50 years of lifting ahead of you. So, but it's harder to sell though.
100%. And yeah, that's exactly right. It's hard to tell someone, okay, this is going to take you 10 years. But for the reality, for a lot of people, it's taken them 20 years to get into the position that they are. It's going to take at least 10% of that time to see some real change.
Absolutely. It's like you can't have a McDonald's lifestyle or a McDonald's diet for 20 years and then fix it in 4 to 6 weeks and have like a 6-pack. So
and expect those results, even if you do get them, to last forever, because it's just going to be a slingshot. And most people, and we see it all the time, most people they do see those results, they get fat as, and then in 4 or 5 weeks they get really ripped. They will slingshot way back. You know, we see it all the time.
And then like it plays havoc as well with your emotions, because, you know, super high, you're like got amazing results, and then 4 months later you're, you know, got more chins than a Chinese phone book.
Like, because you've slingshot it all the way back, you get even more depressed and you fall even deeper into that spiral.
And then that's probably an area that I'm definitely not qualified to speak, but that emotional eating side of thing, and which you see a lot of people, and we can touch on it later, but a lot of coaches, and they're sort of going out of their scope of practice, and, you know, they might have attended a Tony Robbins seminar or, you know, read a couple of books on like mindset and change, and then all of a sudden they're a life coach and they're changing people's lives. And it's like, well, hold on, if someone's got like an emotional eating issue, you know, are you the right person to fix that? You know, there are people that are qualified and they specialize in that, but I think it can be quite dangerous to see someone who pretends to wear all the hats.
Well, you can never have all the answers, and I think a lot of the time it's so much better to say to someone, no, I'm not really sure, I'm not sure, but this person knows. go speak to them. We spoke about it when we first met. Olivia did ask me, what do I do for nutrition? I said, well, I don't like to do nutrition because for myself, I don't delve into that because I've never really had a problem with food. I know when I'm eating healthy, but I've not done any courses for it, so I don't want to go and tell someone what they should be eating, because for myself, like, I have McDonald's, I do whatever, you know. But usually I'm cooking dinner at home because I enjoy cooking food. But I've got no right to go and tell someone this is how they should be.
But I remember you saying that, and I was thinking like that's the sign of someone who's like good at what they do, because if you're proficient in your specialized area and you say to someone, this is not my area, refer out. And this was the same as me with like the rehab side of things. Like when, you know, I love like the strength and conditioning side of things. I like doing, you know, I like getting sort of deep into the assessment side of things as well, and like the biomechanics of stuff. But when it comes to like injury rehab, like it's not something that I'm interested in. So for me to like learn what I had to do for that client or individual, I'm like, man, you go see this other guy who's like a pro at it.
You're going to get much better results from someone that wants to do it and likes to do it than me going to try to learn as much as I can to help.
And it's always going to be second rate because you're learning it and you might be doing trial and error on that person. But just it's never the same. So with programming, so we'll go into like a bit of a nerd mode. So can you just talk about how you go about your structure, your programs? Doesn't have to necessarily be on the group side of things, more perhaps maybe individual.
So obviously we talked about it earlier, like we mentioned it earlier, Skybody is my online personal training company, and we like to set workouts into 4 quadrants. Well, I like to. I'm running the program. But the reason for that is so that you can, for general population, because it's not for athletes. Generally it's not for athletes. The reason we split it into 4 quadrants is so that you can pick and choose the parts of that workout according to how time poor you are for each session. So each block will range from 5 to 20 minutes, and we'll always have a warm-up. And the warm-ups will always be one of 2 different warm-ups, and we'll change those maybe every 4 weeks. But the reason for that is so that it makes it easier for people to get into the gym and ready to work. So I think we touched on it earlier, like one of the most important things about training for people, or being able to train for people, is adherence and being able to go into the gym and making it easy for themselves. So I like to keep things the same a lot. So the warm-up's always the same. It's nice and easy. We went through one earlier today. They always got a nice flow. So,
but that's like, and it's probably something we don't do, is like, you know, depending on the workout, sometimes they'll adjust the warm-up. But I think having that structure to the warm-up as well as the workout, it makes things easy for you as a coach, but it's easy for them for like, you know, perfecting it. You know, when they're doing like a Turkish get-up, or they're doing something that they might not have done before, you progress. The same as linear progression in a periodized program, you progress, and the same with the warm-up. Like, I'm sure you can scale the warm-up if the person's better at the...
We grab weights, we turn them up, kettlebells, we turn them upside down to make it more difficult, didn't we? And one of the cool things about doing those exercises, like we did half Turkish get-ups, for example, in our warm-up today, and we did shoot-throughs, those kind of things where you got to move around and use stability to do it. A lot of people are really bad at it. Untrained people are really bad at it when they start. But the good thing about that is we can regress it back, and then in 3 weeks' time, they can do it perfectly. Because, you know, it's just repetition. And that's what I really like about keeping those warm-ups the same, is because it's one aspect straight away that someone takes 10 minutes to do every day, and they can see a lot of progression without actually having to do much more than that. And then after the warm-ups, we move into what I call the starter. And I use a starter which is like 5 to 10 minutes of really hard work. Because we've got to remember, like, I'm trying to plan and coach for people that are just trying to create a lifestyle, you know, so they don't want the training to be, they're not training to be athletes, they're training just to be healthy and build it into their lifestyle, so it's something easy they can do every day. The 5 to 10 minutes work really hard, get really puffing, and I find that just kind of sets them up to work nicely, because it sets them up to work nicely for the rest of the session, because we'll then go into strength or lifting, where we can slow it right down, and people really like having to, or being able to slow down from that really fast-paced start and then focus. Whereas I found in the past, if I try to go into the strength straight away, people try to do the strength really fast, and they're trying to do it like a circuit. And I was like, just slow down. What are you doing? Why are we trying? How are you finished those reps already?
Yeah, you know? Especially when you're working at intensity, it's like you can't do that fast.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, how do I combat that? So I put this starter in there to just burn people out mentally, I guess, so they don't want to work fast anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's so effective. We get into this slow-paced strength phase or endurance phase where we're lifting, and people want to take their time and think about the movements a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think it's similar concepts, and what I actually love about CrossFit is, you know, work capacity. Like you're working, you know, something that's got your heart rate jacked up. You've just run for a kilometer, or you've done battle ropes for 5 or 10 minutes. Then you're onto the bar and you're trying to squat. I know from like a powerlifting purist is going to hate that. But in terms of like actual modalities of you know, strength, work capacity, it teaches your body like how to deal. And when you're working with athletes or even with general population, it's like you're not always going to be rested for 5 minutes before you do your deadlifts. You're going to be working and then you're going into something else. And I think it has a nice flow to sessions like that. You
get that kind of nice fuzzy feeling when you're learning in the gym. So like when you have someone go and they work really hard and they come back and they really have to think about what they're doing. I don't know about you, but if I'm doing that, I get like some warm fuzzy feeling at the back of my head. You know when you learn something new? And I see people like they work really hard and they go back and they have to think about what they're doing, and you just see it hit them and they go, I really enjoy what I'm doing right now. And I find that makes people want to just come back.
Yeah, and then I mean, after years and years and years, and then they don't have to do that thought process. It becomes like autonomic. The nervous system's ready. But I mean, most of the clients that we work with predominantly are like the beginner to intermediate, and so they have to think consciously about what they're doing. Where does my foot go? How slow am I going in this tempo? You know, what's my chest position on this? Whereas like you and I might have been training for 15, 20 years. It's like we get under the bar, it's just natural. You know, your knees spread, you're spreading the floor with the bar or with your feet.
That's the thing, like you everything just becomes habitual, and like you just get into those positions naturally. Like, I've just started training with a bunch of CrossFit guys and learning a whole bunch of new moves, and it's weird, man. Like I feel like I can go in there and smash these workouts. I do 3 or 4 reps, and then because I have to think about every single little thing, I miss my timing by half a second, and I'm just failing. I'm like, I get so frustrated. But it's good because it kind of makes me realize, okay, that's what I've got to think about that with these people as well.
Well, it's interesting because I had one of the podcast guests, Dan John, who's written like a whole host of books, but he wrote one with Pavel on, it's called Easy Strength. And in there's a template, there's a program, and I did it like religiously for like, I think maybe 8 weeks, and it's literally the same workout. You do the same workout every day. And I've never and I've been working out for like, before that, maybe literally 20 years. And until I did that program where I did the same movements every day, I like got exponentially better just technically lifting because you're doing the same movements. And now when I get under a bar, like for a tall guy who's got long limbs, like everyone's always like, oh, you got a pretty good squat for like a tall guy. And it's because I literally like ingrained that movement just over that 8 weeks. I was doing the same movement every day. I still remember the program. It was like overhead squat, front squat, bent over row, single arm dumbbell press, and then there was like barbell rollouts. And I literally did that workout every day. But the key with the workout is it's not to it's not to fatigue. So you're doing sub-maximal the whole time, and at various days during the week you do different rep schemes, but you would never ever get tired. So it was all based on skill.
You get loads of reps and
loads of
those good quality reps.
And so you'd be doing like, literally it was, the first workout was like 2 sets of 5. Sounds easy, but like after you've done it for like multiple things, your weight has just dramatically increased, and you're not actually working on fatiguing the muscles. It's all neural, so all your adaptations are neural. And so for me, like I get under the bar, it's like just automatic. And I could not recommend that program enough.
That's with everything, isn't it? Like everything in life. That's why I think this is why a lot of trainers think that they go into life coach, because everything transfers over into every aspect of life. If you put the work in and you do the simple, boring stuff as often as you can, you're going to get better at it.
Yeah.
There was a study I read about a professor at a university that did a photography course, and he set half of the students at the task of taking one photo. They just had to submit one photo, which is the best photo they could do for the whole year. And the other half of the students had to take as many photos as they could. And he went through the whole year thinking, okay, well, these guys that are taking one photo are going to be able to work really hard on it and send better photos in. But the guys that did the most photos put in the best photos, because they took more photos, they put reps in, they got better at editing, they got better at taking pictures.
Yeah.
Whereas the guys that did one went out, took one picture, and then that was it.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, people think with strength training, there's so many nuances to technique, arm position, bar path, all those things with a bench press. Like, I remember like doing a couple of courses with FMA, a guy called Mark Buckley, and he'd literally spend like half a day just talking about the bench press. Yeah. And you're like, you know, in the client's head, they're like, what, bar goes up, bar goes down. That's all you do. But like in terms of like the thought that these guys have on bench press and just on squats, there's so many things that you can do, so many variations, different techniques, different hand positions, foot placement, all that stuff like makes such a big difference. And until you do a program like that, you don't actually realize. You're like, I've been squatting for so many years, but I was never actually that good.
Yeah, it's funny when you do things that frequent, isn't it? Because you go into the gym without even someone telling you, and you go, oh, that worked a lot better. I'm going to do that from now on.
Yeah, but also just having structure there. Like sometimes I'll go through periods where I'll be like heavily structured with my programs. I'll do, you know, wave loading. I'll do certain things, but then other times where I'll just be like, I just can't. Like I need to use the workout as more as an escape, and so like a lot of times like we'll go do a class or do something like that, so I'll use it more as a stress relief, but then there's periods where I'll lock in and I'll try and learn something. And I think that's the key, is like if you're learning something from that, and then inevitably, like the clients that I was working in with at that period of time, I started programming like that. So then it's like, I'm learning this, you're doing this too.
What do you think about like people's reasons for training? Because I find that most people will come to me and they'll say, oh, I want to look fit, I want to be fit, and I want to look healthy. Do you try and ask them to find a new why, or? Yeah,
well, I mean, it depends. Like I think for the sales process as well, I think uncovering someone's like deep down seated reason for training makes it easy to sell to them as well. But that's just from a pure sales side of things. But also uncovering that why they're actually there to do it will give you as a coach a better idea of how to structure something. So a lot of times, like you'll see someone who's like maybe an introvert, and they won't feel comfortable in telling you, you know, whatever the reason is, you know, I want to look better for my holiday or whatever it is. They might not tell you, and so you'll start training them, and then a good coach will ask enough questions to actually uncover why.
And then do subtle things in the workouts to make that come out.
Yeah, but I think also when I was doing a lot more personal training, it'd change my language, because if I knew that they wanted something specific, I'd tailor it. I'd always loop it back. We're doing this GVT training because you want to put on...
Give them a reason so they buy into it.
Yeah, whereas if you just go, give me 10 sets of 10 reps at 100 kilos, they're like, man, this is fucking hard. Like, I don't want to do this. Whereas if you tack on the reason why you're actually doing something, but
because you told me you want to do this, isn't it?
And always prodding them with that. For me, I use that as like a motivational tool for them, but also as like a sales thing. It was quite good if you could uncover that. But I mean, with a lot of people, a lot of times they won't give you that answer. It'll be like, get fit, you know, lose weight, or...
I find if that happens, then I try to give them the why. Okay, we're going to work on this so you get better at this. You know?
And I think people naturally want to get better. So if you present them, you know, here's my plan, here's the plan for the next 6 months, here's the plan for the next 12 months, you know, at 4 weeks I want you to be here, it gives them that external cue to work towards. Whereas if you're just and I think I made this mistake a lot when I was initially coaching with a lot of people. Like in my head, like I'd program and I'd know why I'd be doing it, but if you don't communicate like set points and target points for them, they won't actually push as hard. Whereas if you say, today is your day to get a PB, or, you know, to get competitive with themselves.
Yeah.
If they're competitive with themselves, then it's like you've done your job, and it's like you've just kind of nudged them in the right direction.
Yeah, and the motivation's just always there, right? Ready to go.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when we're talking about different coaching styles before, like, some people will respond to someone who shouts at them, some people... But as a coach, especially with personal training, you need to be receptive to that person, because if you're just barking at someone...
And they're like...
Yeah. But in the other like end of the spectrum, some people like that. Some people love to be told what to do, and
and you need to realise when someone needs a good telling off, or when they just need a little gentle nudge. Yeah, exactly. That's good coaches, isn't it? That's knowing your customer, knowing your client, knowing your team, or knowing your athlete.
Yeah, and it's being conscientious enough to, like, not just show up and take someone's money, which I think a lot of, like, trainers will do, is they'll just, you know, this person's paying me 300 dirhams, or this person's paying me 400 dirhams. They're just focused on what they're getting out of it. But at the end of the day, like, if you're going to pay someone, and, like, if you equate that to, like, Australian dollars, American dollars, like, in Dubai, trainers charge a lot of money here, and it's not indicative of what you're getting a lot of times.
A lot of it is just made up, isn't it? It's just, well, this is what everyone else is charging, so I'm going to charge it as well.
Yeah. Market forces here is like, I mean, you go anywhere, like, you get a coffee, it's like 20 dirhams for a coffee, and, like, you equate that to Australian dollars, it's like $9.
Yeah. What would pay $3.50 for $4 back home?
Yeah. So in terms of, like, programming, so you're just talking about, like, the flow and the structure of your 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
Do we round off that or no?
So
we got through the starter, and then we were talking about the main lift side. So I'll either have a main lift side where it'll be, depending on what phase we're in, so we'll run 6-week phases. It'll either be strength, it'll be endurance, or it will be power.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that'll be 3 days of the week, and then the other 3 days will always be conditioning. But those conditioning days will always be frequency on the exercises that we've done the day before. Okay? So say we've done squats, like the strength days, the main lifting days will always be leg push pull. Okay, and so we'll say we've done squats, bench press, and pull-ups on the Sunday. So Sunday's Monday over here, or day 1. Then on day 2, the conditioning will be squats, pull-ups, and a chest push exercise as well. So we'll always get that frequency in there. There might be something else, but it will be a quad dominant exercise, a chest dominant exercise, and a lat dominant exercise. And I just like that because we get that frequency, so that person's training that muscle again. Just get that more muscle memory. It helps them when they come back to it the week after. They've got a bit more, and they've done the reps like we just talked about.
Yeah. And then in terms of, like, if they've been compliant, and which is probably the biggest thing since moving to the Middle East, and when I used to do a lot more personal training here, it's like I'd have these structured programs. I'd have a period where they'd do a deload, but deload almost doesn't exist here because you don't have someone for 5-6 weeks in a row.
So transient over here, isn't it? They're going away, or they go to a brunch and they're not training for a week. I try not to put deload weeks in, because for that exact reason. So people train, and I just say, I have an RPE scale, so rate of perceived exertion, and if you're in the gym and you're not feeling great, you feel like your body's just needs a week where you don't train very hard, then bring the level down. And like you talked about before, we never train to maximum because it's general population, right? Unless you really want to go and learn what your 1RMs are, which you don't need to really. Go do a powerlifting competition, and I'll help you find a place where you can go do that safely. But with the training that we're doing, we're just trying to create a lifestyle. It's not about performance as much as it is adherence and just enjoying what you're doing in the gym.
Yeah, but I think as well, like, everyone gets caught up in they want to know their 1RM, and what I use, and I actually find it's, like, super accurate, is the 1 repetition calculator you can get. So you just get them to do a 5RM or an 8RM, depending how, like, advanced they are. If they're obviously more advanced, you get them to a 3 or something, and it's more accurate. But like even for myself, when I've tested it, like I'm so close to the numbers on those calculators that it's like it's uncanny. So it's like you never really need to do it unless you're, like you said, doing a powerlifting comp or.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're an athlete, then sure, because we're going to use it for testing and we're going to use that to prescribe exercises
Based off percentages.
Based off percentages. But for a general population, most of the time, you've not got the same circumstances outside of the gym every day that athletes do. So there's no way that you're going to be as consistent in the gym as they are.
Yeah, just for the people that might not be familiar with like percentages, can you just explain what, like, how you program based off percentages?
I don't personally, but if you were like say you could lift 100 kgs for example for a squat, then a lot of trainers would say, okay, you're going to lift at 60% of that for your 5 rep. That's going to be your 5 RM or something like that. So you take a percentage of either your 1 RM, your 2 RM, 3 RM, and we program that according to whatever rep scheme we've given you elsewhere. Personally, I don't really like it because people will take their very best score that they got on the best day, that they've had perfect conditions outside of the gym, and then they go in and try and do 60%, and they do half the session because it's way too heavy for them. So I like to say use the rate of perceived exertion because every single day someone's going to be different. What do you feel like is a 6 out of 10 today? And if you're lifting a weight and you know that it's like a 3 out of 10 on that day, then we're going to go heavier. But if you go into the gym and you're absolutely buggered from the week, then you're probably going to have to lift light. So that might, like 10 kgs today might be a 6, whereas 10 kgs tomorrow might be a 2.
It's so true. And I think if I use Olivia as the example on this one, she's like full type A personality, and so she knows her percentages and her numbers, which her coach has given her, but she'll like, just like me and you, she'll work like a crazy day. She'll do like a 15-hour day. She'll go into the gym and, Patrick, her coach, has set her numbers to do, all right, you've got to do, 5 deadlifts, rack pulls on like 120 kilos or whatever it is, and she can't do it. And she's like adamant she's going to do it. And I'm in the gym like telling her, man, take the weight off.
Just chill. Like you're going to get so much more out of it bringing it back and getting some nice quality reps in at 80%.
But just from like a personality standpoint, it's like I can tell her. She conceptually understands what it is, but it's like, doesn't care. And that was funny when I was working in DIFC with a lot of the corporate but like high level guys, the CEOs and CFO guys, and they had that same sort of mentality. And they'd come into the gym and they were just like running on fumes. They'd have like 4 hours sleep, there'd be like stress coming out of their eyeballs, and they're like, we did this last week, I want to do this. And I was like, man, but telling those guys a lot of times, you've got to like change the program on the fly. You got to go, today's a Metcon day, or today's because if you're getting that guy under the bar that's had like an all-nighter in the office, and he's got that white line fever where he's like, I'm going to pull it.
Exactly. You have to take them away from strength at that point, don't you? I like to use something called EDT, escalated density training. Have you heard of that? So for those guys listening, like it's 15 minutes, for example, and you'll use a weight that you can lift for 10 reps uncomfortably, and you do about 5 reps. So you start at 5 reps and you do as many rounds as possible with 2 antagonist muscle groups, so a squat and a bench press. We do 5 reps as many times as we can, and when you feel like you're about to fail, before you fail, we'll drop to 4, drop to 3, drop to 2, drop to 1. And for guys like that, it's perfect because they can work as hard as they can, but we never fail, and we're never doing bad quality. It's always good quality. They get a lot out of the session.
And because they're short and sharp as well, those sessions as well. You can do a lot of work, but it's in a short period of time. One of the other podcast guests, Mark Luxon, I've had on before, he loves that because he's got short amount of time, just goes in and like hit it and quit it, like, and you work hard. And
it's really good for people that don't like doing cardio because it's cardio at the same time. You've got your heart rate really high because you're constantly working for 15 minutes. So kill 2 birds with one stone. And
then in terms of like, just to close out the loop on your like the guys that you work with at Sky Body or just in your own programming, what assessments, like obviously they're following the program, you're checking, are they getting to these markers, but like what other assessments apart from RPE are you going off? Is it
mainly for me it's about like how people are feeling. I know it's a bit airy-fairy, but I like to go, okay, how do you feel about yourself now? What do you want to change about yourself now that we've done 8 weeks? And I find people adapt where they are in their mind. When they come to me, it's always, I really want to get fit, I want to be healthy, I want to do this. And I go, ask them in 8 weeks, what do you want to do now? What's your next step? How do you feel? I want to be able to lift this much weight, I want to be able to do that. And it all changes to performance, usually, over physical appearance. And I just find that's a way better way for people in the long run to start looking at training.
Yeah. Well, because physical appearance is, very subjective, and people with, body disorders or, they're the people that if you're just fixated on that, how do I look in the mirror? What's my body fat percentage at? It becomes like almost a disability for them, because then they're like, I'm 7% body fat now and I was 5% body fat the time before, and so they equate it to a number, and then it's
but those people also, they look at the numbers every single week, and everyone knows that's been around for a while, that the numbers go up and down. Even if they're moving in a steady trend over time, they go up and down, and it's just going to make you so frustrated looking at numbers every week. So I could go out on a night out, for example, and I'll be dehydrated when I wake up in the morning, 4 kgs lighter than the night before. It's happened a few times, like it's weighing yourself so close to the last weigh-in is just or comparing them is just not great.
Well, it's just not good to be fixated on the number, because then it, your associated worth is on that number.
And what happens when you get to a weight where that's never going to move again?
And so there's homeostatic range where you're going to sit between a certain body fat percentage or a certain thing without, unless you have a huge intervention or you're taking some
exogenous... Your body actually wants you to be there, doesn't it?
For a health perspective. And that's why if you can shift their focus onto an external or performance-based thing, you're going to be a little bit more fruitful, and their emotions are going to be kept a little bit more intact.
Emotions are such a powerful tool, and I don't think a lot of people understand them. Like we said earlier, we're not qualified as psychologists or psychiatrists to talk about that too much, but I find if you can get someone emotionally feeling better about themselves, and that's their main focus. I've been training for 8 weeks and I feel great, I'm getting great compliments, I feel good, and now I want to be better at this. I want to be better, not I want to look good, I want to have a six-pack. No one needs to have a six-pack. Like, I don't have a six-pack and I feel great about how I look, that's such a better way to, I find it's such a better way to look at things for people. And they take that a lot further. Whereas, like we just said, you get numbers to a certain point and they stop, people get depressed. Whereas if you just think about how good you feel all the time, it lasts forever. Or can last forever.
But also, it's I know, like, from an emotional side of things, like in terms of stalling your fat loss, if you're weighing yourself or getting your body fat tested every day, you've got a cortisol spike after it, because you're like pulling your hair out. You're like getting on, you're anxious, you get off, and you hate yourself, you're like, and then it starts that sort of vicious cycle. And then, if your cortisol's jacked, then the chances that your body's going to actually want to liberate that fat and get rid of it. And that happens like in bikini competitors and like physique competitors. It's like probably more so on the bikini side of things, is they're so driven by like, the place on the stage or the body fat numbers. It's like you will always see, not always, but I've worked a little bit in the past with some bikini girls, but they usually look better the week out than on the show day, because they're like, they're getting still to that
training. And they're kind of having a repeat at that stage, so they're nice and relaxed.
But when you get to that last week, it's stressful, because they're like getting on stage and they're like, got their bikini and all that other stuff, and then your emotions are playing in, and then your body's going to say, I'm holding on to that last little bit of fat, or
big time.
So it just coming back to, like, I guess, content and learning, and you obviously seem like you're switched on and you're avid learner. What, I guess, resources, podcasts, YouTube, books, would you regularly consume?
So I read a lot this year. I started this year, but before this year I hadn't read a lot since university and high school, but this year I started using Audible a lot, because I get really dizzy looking at books and looking at words on a page. So take my dog for a walk, I'm driving in the car, listening to Audible. A couple of good books that I've read this year, The Lean Startup, it's a good book, or The Power of Habits, And Atomic Habits by James Clear. That was one of my favourite ones this year.
I read a lot of his articles. I haven't actually read his book.
Yeah.
So Atomic Habits was it was a big game changer for me, actually. It put a lot of things in perspective, and it makes you quite self-aware reading it. That was quite a good book. And in terms of like content out there, like I said earlier, Andy Galpin, you can't really look past him. He actually puts his whole course. He's a university professor. He puts his whole course on YouTube for free. You obviously don't get accredited for it, but you can go there and watch proper university courses and content for free. So I watch a lot of that, and try to adapt that to my clients and everything. And then other than that, like the usual Instagram guys like Squat University, guys that are talking with real content. Sonny Webster I like, because he's an Olympic lifter and I'm kind of getting into that, so I'm interested in it. I think if anyone's listening and they're thinking about, who do I follow and who do I look at, think about what you're actually interested in and find someone that presents that information to you in a good way. And
because everyone's slightly different, everyone consumes media different. Some people like video, some people like books, some people like audio books, podcasts. I'm like probably like, I don't know, for me I'm just like stuck on podcasts. I just like constantly listen to podcasts, and YouTube's like, whenever I have a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll go to YouTube, and YouTube's just, I mean, you can just find so much stuff.
So many answers there,
I know I keep saying his name, Andy Galpin. What he does really well was, obviously he's a professor, so he's doing a lot of studies and he's coming out with new information all the time, but he also gives you links and guides to real studies, so that you're not just taking this bullshit that's coming out in the industry or on Instagram from people that have taken it third or fourth string down the line and just making it into something that works for what they're trying to talk about.
You're getting it from the source.
The source, and he talks about real stuff, and these studies give you real figures, and it just makes you understand things a lot better.
Cool. So just, I know we're sort of jumping around a bit, but in terms of your like Sky Body program, can you just, what did it start out as, and what does it sort of evolve to now? Obviously it's an online thing. You've got lots of exercise library. You've got, a lot of work in that space.
So we started out as an online personal training company for cabin crew or aviation crew, because obviously in Dubai we've got Emirates, we've got Fly Dubai, we've got Etihad. So you've got over 50,000 working staff that are flying around the world every day. My girlfriend is she's Emirates as well. She works for Emirates. So kind of just molded both of our professions together, and I thought, you guys are really struggling to stick to things because you're flying around the world all the time, so why don't we create a program that you can adhere to wherever you are across the world? And we can use minimal equipment, whatever, it's really adaptable wherever you are in the world. And that's kind of how it started. We were taking crew rosters, so wherever they were flying, we're taking their roster and planning out their whole month. So, okay, you're flying today, you're going to work out at this time. You're landing here, and you're going to work out at this time. Or you're going to do yoga at this time. And it was all according to where they were flying and what they were doing. And as it progressed, we kind of realized, okay, everyone else in Dubai flies a lot as well. Like, you probably know with your clients, they're traveling all the time. So I thought, well, because of the transient nature of Dubai, why don't we broaden our horizons and go, okay, it's a professional program for professionals that are traveling, or professionals that are struggling to stick to something because they're in a different place. They're in Madrid on Sunday and New York on Wednesday, So how do we give them something that's easy to pull out of their pocket? It's got videos on, and they can just go, okay, I'm just going to do as much of this as I can, however much time I've got, and I'm going to be able to stick to that each day. And that's how it kind of grew, and that's where we are now. So now we're kind of relaunched as a professional business, rather than crew specific. But that's where it will stem from, training people that are traveling all the time, never in the same place once.
It's probably the hardest problem to solve, and I think what me being in Dubai for this long, it's like you just see people, and we run a 4-week program with our guys, and to get people to commit to 4 weeks is it's literally like they're signing away their life. It's man, 4 weeks, it's just 4 weeks, but they're they're in New York one week, they're in London the next.
It's crazy. Like, I've never been somewhere where people travel so much. It's weird, eh? Like,
we're just in the middle of the world, and I think people just with business as well. The way business is, they'll just travel to the office that's the next closest to them, and they'll work from there. But for us as coaches, it's a huge like problem to solve, and it's like, you know, to have someone not be able to, like, I think for us, we would actually prefer to sell like a 6-week program or like something a little bit longer, but we struggle to sell a 4. So it's
someone will be around consistently for that whole time.
Yeah.
Ever. For a 6-week plan, never.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to tackle. That's the problem that we're trying to solve is you're training, you're trying to train hard, you've got a trainer, you're paying a lot of money for a trainer to come train you one-on-one whenever you're in Dubai. But you're probably wasting that money because you're not sticking to anything. They're probably not giving you a plan and structure to stick to whenever you're around the world. So here we go with here's your 1-year plan. So we sell a 12-month membership, and every week we send out a new workout plan, which are in 6-week phases. So you do 6 weeks of one set of one type of workout, like for the main list, so it'll be strength. Then we'll do another 6 weeks. And I find that when people go, okay, well, this is a whole year thing, I'm going to do as much as I can all the time, and it lasts a lot longer. The results last a lot longer.
All right, so just changing gears a little bit. So just talking, we spoke offline a little bit about communication styles, and we actually touched on a little bit before, and how we're probably, the way we coach is probably similar, but then there's other coaches out there that work at different companies, and they'll be like the drill sergeant, and which gives me an idea for a little bit later. We can talk about just this trash and bash sort of approach to training, which we've spoken offline a lot, but we haven't actually spoken online about it. But just in terms of your approach to group training and the way, I think conceptually a lot of people think group training, especially with boot camps, is, you know, yelling at people, you know, getting them to do, you know, hard things, you know, that there is some aspect of that. You need to be motivational, but having done your class, and for you actually now coming on board and working with us at Best Body Co, is, you know, your style is different. It's not the same as mine. It's not the same as Olivia's. It's not the same as, but I think you've got your own voice, and I think you only arrived to that after you've been in the industry for a while. But what's your take on that?
Well, I think with like in terms of the coaching style, like I've never really appreciated coaches that have yelled at me, especially playing rugby growing up. Like having those coaches that will always be like, "You've got to go out, you've got to play as hard as you can," just saying all the cliche stuff. It just made me just switch off. And I also honestly laugh when I'm standing in a rugby huddle and people are saying cliche stuff, just yelling it at me. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, tell me something I can actually use when I go out there. And that's what I try to deliver. So when I'm coaching someone, it's not, come on, work faster. It's, come on, get your hips in the right place, stand up tall, squeeze your glutes. It's slower as well. So it's never, I always speak with like, kind of how I'm talking now, with quite a soft tone. I find that that's how I like to coach people, because mentally I don't want to be psyching myself up. I want people focused and doing things properly, because it's so much better, I find, for people to move well than it is for people to move aggressively and fast. And so and I guess the way I do that, and then why I guess I'm a bit different to other people, is because I'm a bit cheeky in my personality, so I always smile and always try to make it, I guess, a little bit fun in that way. Whereas like you said, we got people, other trainers like to just go, and people like to just go at people and bark orders. That's just not for me. It's all about, how do I move this person to be better without scaring them or without making them think they have to move faster before perform better. It's always performance before.
But it's interesting coming from you. But you're like a big guy. You got the tattoos. You know, you look like.
And I get that a lot. People, like, when they do my class and they come and see me as a trainer, they're like, "Man, you look so angry in the gym. Like, I didn't want to approach you." I've got like a resting bitch face, I guess. People say that a lot. Like, And I thought that you were such an angry trainer and such an angry person. It's quite funny. I'm total opposite. I will be the most gentle trainer. I've honestly probably the most gentle trainer a lot of people have.
Yeah. But it's funny though, when going back to when I was at university, they had I remember reading a study, and it's a quite famous study. I can't actually quote who actually did it, but it's got the inverted U, the arousal theory. And so it'll show you on a graph, or X and Y graph, it'll show you, where someone is on their optimal arousal level for a specific for performance. So you've got personality types that change that, but also skill-based sports are different. So you don't see any golf players like revving themselves up before they hit a putt. Or whereas obviously like a brute sport like rugby, where you've got to have like impact, there's probably more of that. But then it goes back to the individual. It's like you might have 10 guys on the pitch or the full team, 9 of those guys or maybe 7 of those guys are responding to it, and you've lost the other 3.
When it comes to those things, like going out on the rugby pitch, I don't find that yelling at someone is like, it might psych someone up, but it's not going to make them perform better. I find when it comes to athletes, especially when you've got someone that needs to be in the right mindset, be elevated, give them a personal challenge. Like when we're in a team environment, I'll always take an individual to the side and go, I'm expecting this from you today. This is what you should be doing. Just by themselves, just have a word to them, and they'll go away. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, they'll go out there and they'll perform that task exactly how I've asked them to individually. But if you're yelling at a team, everyone's just hearing the noise and they're getting psyched up. Most of the time, they'll go out there and they'll do something wrong. Because they're trying to do too much.
Because they're in that over-aroused state.
And you're 1 second too early and everything just goes wrong.
Well, especially with like a sport like rugby or like tennis or golf, like there's so many nuances to the things that they're doing. Whereas if you have like a powerlifter as the opposite,
they can get psyched up, smacking their legs. And I do that when I'm going to powerlifting meet. I'll be smacking my legs and getting my muscles ready and trying to psych myself up. But
because you've practiced that movement so often, you're not actually using the frontal part of your brain to actually consciously think. You're just like automatic, bang, I'm under the bar, I'm lifting this.
And it's a 1 second movement, So once your body knows all those movements, they will happen straight away. And you can do what you can do.
And it's just interesting though, but with different styles, like sometimes just going to different classes and stuff and having different coaches over the years, some of the coaches I feel that do have that style, it does work sometimes on me. Like it's not
like push you style.
But it has to be the right moment. It's not if someone's doing it uneducated and they're just trying to prod you but they're not actually sure what they're doing. But I've had good coaches over the years that actually know how to push you.
They'll see when you're not quite where you should be at that point, and they'll go, come on. But usually, I don't know about you, but for me, they'll do that, but they'll come and whisper it in my ear, in a bit of an aggressive way, but it won't be like yelling at everyone, That's what I mean.
Whereas Olivia, like her style is more drill sergeant style, and she's come from a group fitness style, and I think because she loves that, like she would in a class she needs someone to yell at her to get her to across that line.
There are a lot of people like that, aren't there? And it's obviously effective because people go back to those classes all the time because they like to be yelled at and like to be told exactly what to do. I just find that more often than not, you're benefiting more from slowing down and doing things with a bit more mindfully than if you're just putting a lot of intensity into things.
And just going back to what I was talking about before with we've spoken about it with people who attend a lot of classes, and so there's I'm not talking about the classes we run, I'm talking more about the high intensity interval classes, CrossFit sort of style classes where it's a lot of smash and bash and you're literally beating people to a pulp, but they're going, and I think in typical fashion they think in their brain, they're like, okay, if I went 2 times last week, if I go 3 times next week, I'm going to get better. If we go 4 times next week, I'm going to get better. But I guess, can you talk about that and why that is a bad strategy and how?
And we've talked about how much I get frustrated by it, and you probably do as well. It's never a good idea. if you're training as hard as you can every single day, your progressive overload is through the roof, and your recovery is always going to be down. So even though you think you're working as hard as you can, your recovery is declining, and you get worse and worse and worse. And that's why you see a lot of people that go to these classes where they're working as hard as they can, but they're not actually seeing any physiological change. Like, their bodies are still quite flabby. They're not actually building any muscle because they're not recovering. So yeah, they're eating all these, eating the right calories and stuff, but their body's just burning all that fuel because you know, they're thrashing themselves every day, and they're not actually building any meaningful progress.
And I think that's when they focus too much on, you know, that you need a little bit of that. You need your metabolic conditioning. You need to get, you know, out of your comfort zone and do those things. But like picking it every single day where you're going in the gym and you're thrashing yourself and thinking more is better, more is better, more is better. It's like, you just going down the wrong path.
Like, as an athlete, former athlete and wanting to train athletes, like, we would never work as hard as we can every day. Most of the training sessions that athletes do are skill based. You know, and you're learning the movements correctly. And then 2 days, maybe a week, you're sending it and you're going as hard as you can. You're trying to get PRs. You're trying to lift as heavy as you can. You're trying to run as fast as you can. But that's not a daily occurrence. That's okay. We're going to train ourselves ready to peak for this moment. Train ourselves ready to peak for this moment. And a lot of it, like we spoke about earlier, is repetitions. And so I guess that's where we both go into these group class settings, and we're like, well, I don't want you to thrash yourself all the time. I want you to be learning, send it. Learning, send it.
And I think it goes back to, like, I always say this, is you're only as good as you're able to recover. And so, you know, if you can do 5 classes a week like that and you can recover, either like you're like Superman or like you're taking a lot of drugs that's enabling you to recover, but the actual results that they're getting in the class, like you see a lot of people that just focus on that high intensity interval training. You get them under the bar and you say, all right, well, let's lift some significant load here. We'll push you to like, you know, 70, 85%. Let's do a 5 by 5, and they like crumble. They're like weak. They can't lift it. Whereas, you know, the opposite end of the spectrum, you can go down the other way where you're like a powerlifter and you're
never doing intensity.
So there needs to be some sort of, well, for me anyway, I like to have a well-rounded.
Everyone's not an athlete, you know? So just do everything. Like, just pick your moments. So you don't need to be training hard every day. And if you like going to that style of class, then fine. Just pull it back. Pull the intensity back a couple times a week. And the trainer should understand that you'll come 3 days a week, or 3 days of that week already, so you need to just tone it down a bit. It's picking your moments for me is a big one.
And that's where, like, not overly scientific, but it is scientific, is RPE. It's like, it's such a good tool just for seeing where someone's at. How do you feel today? The company that I used to work for in Australia, they used to have a little questionnaire that each athlete had to fill out before or the end of each week, and it'd be, you know, how well have you slept, but all these like just random sort of questions, but it like would actually correlate to like a lot of their performance. You'd see next week, you know, the weeks that they were well rested, and which ties into obviously sleep, which we spoke about before we hit record. It's like, if your sleep's good, your recovery's good,
training's going to be better.
And it's like, if you're burning the candle, and I think a lot of trainers are probably guilty of this, it's like undersleeping, overworking, and then overtraining as well. So it's not that we're perfect, and I certainly, you know, there's periods where, you know, we're working like crazy hours,
and then you're trying to train at the same time.
And for me, or for a lot of trainers as well, it's like habitual. Like you want to train because it makes you feel a little bit better.
Pissed off when you're not training, eh? So I was talking to a mate today. We're talking about how do we motivate people that don't go to the gym every day. And I was like, sometimes I can't understand it, because once you're past the point, you don't understand what it was like not to be at that point anymore. So I was like, well, I get angry when I don't go to the gym every day. How do we get these people to be like that?
Well, I think for me, or my experience as personal training, maybe not so much on the group fitness side of things, but when I found I had a client that lasted with 12 months, unless they moved countries or unless they moved, if I could keep them for 12 months, they were in that habit. And sometimes, I guess when I was less experienced, I think I became like the answer for them, which wasn't actually necessarily a good thing because they can't actually go out and train without me. But as I got more experience, I started to learn that if you teach them the skills, you want to empower them to go off, and you don't want to be babysitting someone for the rest of their training life.
Someone needs to be able to take the tools. You need to impart someone with tools to go off for the rest of their life and live healthily. Like with good habits. Habits are a big one. And that's all it is when it comes to health and fitness. If you can build fitness as a habit, and that's why I get angry, because it is a habit of mine. I get up, I train my clients, and I go to the gym. And that's a habit. And if someone can build that into their life, and if it's 15 minutes or if it's an hour and a half, it doesn't matter. That's always in their life every single day. It adds up. It's
and it becomes it's not a choice.
It's not a choice at all.
It's like you're getting up, you brush your teeth. It's not like every day you get up and you're like, I might brush my teeth today, or I might do that.
It's a choice not to go to the gym, isn't it? Like, do I do something else instead? And that becomes the chore. And that's where I think a lot of the fitness world is misled, where they think, okay, I have to go to the gym, I have to work really hard. Whereas for me, you have to come to the gym, you have to just work. And it shouldn't be hard every day. It should be something you should be going in there learning something and enjoying that process of learning, because then that's going to create a habit.
And I think if your nutrition and your diet's dialed in, like technically you probably only need to train 3 times a week. Some people could get away with like maybe training twice a week. If you're physically active and you're not like sitting on the couch all day or sitting behind a desk all day. But I think, unfortunately, with this part of the world and most of the clients that we deal with, physical inactivity is probably more like...
I think alcohol as well. Like, for me, when I first moved here, like, I was going out a lot. I remember the first 2 years I was going out 3 days a week and drinking a lot. And when you drink, you eat badly. Like, so we always order McDonald's, we get hackers on the way home, we get a pizza. So I think in Dubai, a lot of the time, people don't realise how bad alcohol is. Like, we spoke earlier about how 1 or 2 beers just ruins our sleep now. We use these sleep trackers, and I didn't even know how much it was affecting me, And
because people equate sleep or the success of their sleep as how long. But it's not so much how long. It's like you can have a couple of drinks, and depending on what type of alcohol that is, it's like probably the biggest one that it affects is your REM sleep. And your REM sleep, like for cognition, mood the next day, if you've got like, under 15 minutes of REM sleep, it's like you're in a bad mood.
You don't want to do anything.
And
you don't want to talk to anyone.
And that's when you make bad choices as well. It's like, it's not only when you're had the drinks that you make the bad choices for like McDonald's or Burger King or whatever it is, but it's also the next day. It's like your brain is like looking for that dopamine rush, so the only way you get that again is by like sugary or salty snacks. And so the next day it's like, you're having all these foods, and so it's not just the 4 hours of drinking that you were doing, it's the
next day, because you're so sedentary the next day, like you just said, and you go and make we make bad decisions. We order the pizza, we order the takeaway, because getting up to make the food, everyone thinks about it. I'm going to make dinner, but with making decisions when it comes to willpower, it's really easy to talk yourself out of. I was reading this, Atomic Habits, how when you decide to do something, you've got like a 2-second period where you can decide not to do that thing at the same time. It's really easy. You do it a lot. Everyone has the best intentions. Like, okay, I'm going to go for this run. Actually, no, I'm not going to stay here and sit on the couch. And if you start thinking about when you're making these bad decisions or these decisions not to do healthy things or good things, you'll realize it happens straight after you make the decision to go do it. I'm going to go to the gym. No, I'm not.
Well, it's the same with like the start of the day. It's easy to make the hard choices.
Willpower's so strong there.
Whereas towards the end of the day, it's people fall off the diet when they're at night, they're tired, they're watching Netflix, they're like, I'll just order this pizza, or I'll have this bag of popcorn, or whatever it is on the couch. And that's why we always say to people when they're doing the 6 and 4 challenge, that we're like, mornings are the best in terms of like just from a habit thing, but like it gets easy to say no to going to training at the end of the day. Not to say, but evening classes are still busy as well, but also like it's just from a habit point of view, what you were talking about before.
The people that come in the evenings are a bit more motivated, aren't they? Like they can come regularly in the evening. They don't have as many big decisions that they have to make throughout the day. Not about exercising. These guys that are working corporate and everything like that, they have to make so many big decisions during the day that takes a lot of their willpower to say yes or no. And then they come to go to the gym at the end of the day. And you know what? I'm just going to hang the boots up for the night and go to bed. Not go to bed. I'm going to go to the bar and have a pint, you know?
Yeah.
And because that's so much easier to do.
Yeah. So what's, I just guess, sort of rounding up now, what are the plans for next year? What have you got on?
So, over the next couple months, we're really pushing the online stuff. So just trying to build our clientele. Our big vision for that is we want to be a worldwide company. Obviously, setting up in Dubai, but we really want to push that for the next 12 months and grow that as much as we can. Obviously, I'm going to come on board with you guys at Best Body and start running some classes. But then, I'm really looking forward to taking over one of the locations with you guys and collaborating together with my business and your business, and just helping each other in that way. I think that's going to be massive next year. Like, you guys do so much of the things that I do badly really well, and I guess I can offer something that you guys don't really do really well, and just the synergies there are just I'm looking forward to it. So.
No, it'll be a good 12 months, and we'll obviously have to make this a little bit more of a regular thing.
Yeah, definitely. What's better than having a couple of pints on a Thursday afternoon? Eh?
Exactly. So we'll get a lot of coaches and fitness enthusiasts sort of trying to level up their health and their life and their fitness who listen to the podcast. Do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement, or any message?
I guess for trainers, always be learning, always be reading, and be self-aware. For me this year, becoming self-aware of the decisions I was making and how they affected me and the habit loops that I was creating. So we all go through cycles, and if you haven't realized yet, you're going through cycles constantly. And if you're coming back around and going to exactly the same spot, you're not progressing. I was doing that for a long time. So reading a lot this year really helped me realize that's happened 6 times in the last 2 years. I need to change something here so that it doesn't happen again the next time I come around. Because everything's cyclical, and so just realizing what part of your cycle is pulling you backwards, I think is a big thing for trainers, because that again transfers onto your clients, transfers onto the way you program and everything.
And I think what you said is powerful as well. You're talking about self-awareness when it comes to being a coach, because you're in front of people, but not just for a coach, but just for anyone. And if you're self-aware of what you're doing, you know your habits, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, and then you can leverage that off other people, or other people in your network, or coaches or other trainers to do better things. Now I've got a couple of rapid fire questions, just to get to know you a little bit better. So you can take as long as you want with the answers, but what favorite movie?
Remember the Titans.
Oh, it's a good one. We haven't had that one on there before. How come? Denzel, or?
I love the story. I love the building of the team, and just how they all come together. Being a Kiwi, growing up not white in New Zealand, people probably don't realise, especially in America, New Zealand's quite a racist place. So growing up with brown skin in New Zealand, I really, I guess, bought into the whole how the black guys felt in the movie and how they were treated. I love the movie. I love how they all come together, and they're best friends by the end of the movie, and it's just you feel good. I would always watch it the night before a rugby game.
It is a good movie. It's a very good movie. What's all-time either favourite training book, self-help, or something that's just had an impact? It can be Audible, or it can be anything.
Well, Audible in general has really transformed the way I see everything. Just being able to go on there and pick a book and put it at 2 times speed, which is like, you don't have to listen at 1 time speed, it takes forever. Listen at 2 times speed and you get through a book in 4 hours, you know?
Yeah.
Having that tool for me this year has really, really helped me see how I look at myself, how other people probably see me, so get out of my own skin and look back in, and then value the relationships that I've built and throw away the ones that aren't giving anything back. So yeah, I think Audible is a very good tool for anyone that's not using it. And a couple of books that I would say to go to straight away, I'll give you 3. Atomic Habits by James Clear, really good book. Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell is another really, really good book.
Probably one of my favourite books, Outliers.
Outliers will really, like, if you think that, you know, things aren't happening because of certain circumstances, it will just like help you go, okay. You know, when these opportunities come along, the only reason things aren't happening is because I'm not working for them.
But he's like, I love him. Like, he's as an author, Malcolm Gladwell. He just, the way he writes is
it's so easy. It just flows, doesn't it? It's really good, really easy to listen to. Those books, if you listen to them on Audible, will not take you very long at all. Like, they'll fly by. And then the last book that might be a bit controversial, especially for the American listeners, is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall. It's a really, really good book. And I didn't stop listening to that. I listened to it in one day. So it was really, really good to listen to.
And it's a pretty good book. I remember reading that one.
Or Shoe Dog, actually, by Phil Knight. Shoe Dog is really good. The guy that started Nike, that's a really good book as well.
Next one, favourite cheat meal?
Burgers or tacos. So I will always go for, after a night out, I'll always go for burgers. And it always has to be a brioche bun with a nice fatty patty.
And any heads up for the Dubai listeners? Any places here?
Well, there's this new place actually that's, if anyone likes Shake Shack or Five Guys or those types of places,
the full dirty ones.
So if anyone likes those places, there's a new place called Num Nom, NUMNOM, and they do exactly the same burgers but half the price.
Okay. And final rapid fire question is, if you could turn back the clock and give yourself advice, maybe when it was you just starting university, or maybe it was when you just first got to Dubai, what would it be?
Probably read. Well, we didn't have the option for Audible back then, but if anyone's young enough that they're going through, you know, like their late teens or early 20s, just read as much as you can, because you probably don't realize what your actions mean a lot of the time, and I definitely didn't growing through my 20s. And being able to read this year, like I said earlier, I hadn't read a book since university, really, and I'm close to 30 books for this year, and just being able to be, like, it just makes you see everything differently, see people differently, see the way people look at you or things differently.
Well, it goes back to that same thing,
self-awareness, and just read, honestly, read. And there's so many options where you can read on Audible, you can read by looking at a book, you can listen to podcasts, just read, otherwise consume information.
Exactly. Finally, where can people get in contact with you? Like, what's the best?
Okay, so if you want to get in contact with me for any of the online stuff, skybody.com, so www.skaibody.com. That's your best point of call. That'll have my phone number on there and our links to our Facebook pages and stuff as well, Facebook and Instagram. Get on there and you can sign up for a free trial to come try out our online personal training stuff, and we'll give you a good 3 months to try out what we're actually doing. At the moment, we're launching, or we're in the progress of building an application. So once that goes out, if you've already signed up, you'll be able to test that out for free as well. So come on board and give us a shout, send your emails, and we'll get in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the time today. It's been awesome. First for me doing it in the London project, so
surely you won't be the last.
Definitely be back here.
Yeah,
it's good fun.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Cheers, brother.